Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call.
Mr. Hebert?
Yes.
Mr. LeCount?
No.
Mr. Budget?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
Okay. Bids were opened on Thursday, these people bid, and I need a motion recommending awarding the bid to K&L Plumbing and Heating as the lowest responsible bidder.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Motion to adjourn? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Hi, this is Bob Hebert, the Superintendent of Northeastern Clinton Central School, and I would like to take a moment and review with you the proposed budget for this year. And we will start by looking at the changes that we have made in the general fund appropriations. Under general support, okay, the first category is operation and maintenance. If you notice, in the 2004-2005 budget, it was at $1,230,462. This year, it is going to be $1,312,332. There is a little more equipment that we needed to purchase, cafeteria table replacements, and also the increasing price of fuel has affected this category. The next area is under central printing and mailing. Last year the budget figure was $19,900. This year it's proposed to be $25,400. The reason for the increase there is for the newsletter that we have been putting out 4 times a year to all our residents, as well as the increase that we have done to the web page. If you haven't had a chance, please at some time take a look at our new web page. The other category under general support would be special items. If you look at the 2004-2005 budget, you would notice that this category was $293,569. This year for 2005-2006, the proposed figure is $305,567. This is because our administrative contract for BOCES has slightly increased. The next area I'd like to point out would be under instruction. If you look at supervision regular school, you will notice that in 2004-2005, it was at $564,431. For the proposed budget, it is $555,139. The reason for this decrease is because of administrative changes that are taking place in our district. The other area that is a decrease is teaching regular school. In the 2004-2005, it was $6,445,374. In the proposed budget, it's $6,395,668. The reason we could decrease this category is because of reduction in enrollment and also many retirements that we are having this year. The next category would be guidance regular school. Once again, we have a decrease in the budget. In 2004-2005, it was $395,722, and in 2005-2006, it was $351,552 will be in the proposed budget. And the reason for that is we once again have change in personnel. Moving on to the next area, it's district transportation. Under our district transportation services, we had an increase from $1,115,164 to $1,200,022. The reason for this increase is because of the new additional drivers that we've had to add to our fleet. Also, an increase in the price of fuel. If you look at the next category, which is undistributed, you will find that there is a change under employee benefits. The 2004-2005 budget was $4,866,028, and the 2005-2006 proposed budget is $5,321,616. The reason for this increase is that the teacher's retirement went up from 6% to 7.9%, which was an increase of $156,058, and the health insurance went up 9.75%, and the increase in that category was $340,174. The other area that I would like to point out falls under the general fund revenues. Under charges for services, we had to increase our out-of-state tuition from $6,150 to $7,800. We are approximating that we will have about 80 students that will come from out of state, and that will give us around $640,425 as revenue in that category. Then if we move on down to fund balance, you will see that in 2004-2005 we had an appropriated fund balance of $477,000. Last year I explained that our fund balance was at $427,000, but that we would make a one-time addition of $50,000 to that fund balance from our tax cert, since we had settled one or two accounts. This year we had to come back to the $477,000, but since we will be getting some additional state aid, we are going to use that money to reduce the appropriated fund balance to the $287,000 that you see in the 2005-2006 estimated budget. The reason we are looking at trying to lower this appropriated fund balance is because we had a major water project this year that was over $700,000 that we will need to pay for, and we are trying not to incur any debt in doing this. So by lowering our fund balance, it will be easier next year when we prepare our budget. If we look at the tax levy, in 2004-2005, it was $8,633,194. This year, the tax levy will be $8,916,134. Okay. The other areas that I would like to point out to you are that we will have two resolutions besides the budget that we will be voting on the 17th. The first of these resolutions has to do with our libraries, and that is that the Board of Education of Northeastern Clinton Central School District, County of Clinton, be and hereby is authorized to expend the sum of $7,200 per community library and to levy the necessary tax thereof. This means is that we will be, in the resolution, adding $200 more to each of our 3 local libraries if you pass this resolution. The next resolution is the one that I really want to address. As you know, last year, our bus proposition was defeated. And this year, it is extremely important that we are able to pass this resolution because we need some new buses. We have a huge fleet of over 33 buses, and we need to replace buses in various intervals so that we do not exceed the mileage that is recommended and we provide a safe transportation system for our students. This year, the board has even reduced the original amount that was suggested down to having, instead of the 3 65-passenger buses, it will be only 2 65-passenger buses, 2 handicap buses, and 1 7-passenger van. It is also important to point out that since this is a transportation resolution, that these buses are fundable at 90%. The other item that you will be looking at when you go to the polls will be the board members that will be running for office. Mrs. Brassard, who will not be running, who is the incumbent, has 4 individuals that have submitted petitions for her seat: Gail Hardigan, Dan Letourneau, Rita Ward Slater, and Orville Netto. The Term B, 5-year term, which was held by Mr. Knapp, is also going to be Mr. Knapp is also running for that seat unopposed. I believe that covers most of what I wanted to say, except that I want to encourage and invite everyone to please come out on the 17th to vote for the budget. The voting hours this year have been changed. They used to be 12 to 9. This year, the voting hours will be from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m.
Okay, Calvin Katstein here, and as usual, we'll be chatting with the superintendent, and for the second year, it's Mr. Bob Hebert, who was back in the area after how many years away, Bob?
Long time.
Long time.
About 40 years, I would say.
You were still in school when you left. And for many years we did this with Mr. de Grand Prix, and now we go over this with Robert. The figures that were available at the recent hearing, which was this past Monday as we're taping this, I'm going to show this, my plan is to show this on the 15th of May, a Sunday, and the vote is on, is it the 17th?
The 17th, that's correct.
And on the Monday, the 16th, there is a meeting.
That's correct.
Here at Northeastern for anybody with
in the auditorium, right?
any other concerns about the school budget. If you have concerns, get your concerns answered before you vote, because maybe one way or the other you might change your vote based on what you learn. You know, you might be against it and say, hey, well, now I understand, I'll be for it, or whatever. Every year the taxes go up a bit, so that's like saying it's going to snow in January, I guess, right? Don't move back on me, Bob, because that camera won't know it, and I'll be talking to myself here. Before I came down, I have to point out that every year when we're doing this, the lawn out front is mowed while we're doing this. I don't know what that significance of that is. There's Bob Aruda out there mowing that lawn. He's got 16 acres of grass to mow, but it just seems that when I bring my camera in here, that sitting by the window there, that we're going to pick up the sound of that lawn being mowed. some of the changes that kind of stood out, I think you've covered many of them. Operation and maintenance, I see an $82,000 increase. That include the fuel and stuff like that?
The fuel and some additional equipment that needed to be purchased, that needed to be replaced. That was, for instance, some cafeteria tables that we were looking at, and then also the increase in the fuel.
I noticed up above there, central administration went up a little bit and business administration went down a little bit. I guess when you see something going down, that sends up more of a flare when something goes up. Why was business administration down about 8,000?
Well, I think business administration, as you know, we have a business administrator, Bill Knaust, who's from the Retired Business Administrators Association. And Bill comes to, is on a per diem basis, so that would be part of it. And also part of the administrative services that we have here in the office. I think some of the work that Penny is doing, she's doing some work for us in the bus garage, so part of her salary would then go under transportation.
Okay. And before I forget, you mentioned the buses, and that's one of your pets right here, because you want to see those bus resolution passed. Why are buses not part of the overall budget? I mean, we're in a rural area. Bringing the kids to school is part of what we do.
I think it's been the history in this district to always do propositions for buses. Some districts include the buses in the budget itself, but then again, that would have to be reflected in the increase of the budget. But it's always been the history in this district to have different bus propositions, and I believe it's been fairly conservative, where they would replace maybe 3 or 4 different vehicles every year, so that eventually with a large fleet like 33, 34, you would need to, to have some kind of a replacement schedule. And it is 90% aidable.
Because you say always, and of course, always doesn't always mean always. It's possible that the buses became a separate item years back, maybe when a budget was failed, and so they decided to put it in as a proposition and try to get the budget passed without the buses or separately.
That's correct.
And then kept doing that. So I
could
doubt if it was always.
Well, I'm just saying, from the history,
in recent history,
in the recent history that I've been able to
Right.
look at, I know that there was a time when there was a separate vote for buses in this district, when they used to vote for the bus propositions around January. And
that happened a couple times, and I don't think the public particularly appreciated that fact, because
it should be at the same time.
Yeah, it should be at the same time, and I think I would include it in the overall budget, because we can't trust you to give us a good ruling on our need for buses. Why should we trust you on the rest of the budget, right?
Right.
Okay, so occupational education went down about 21,000. Is that because of retirements and so on? And you're going to
Right. It could all, but occupational education also can be the VOTEC, depending on the number of students that you send to that program.
That's one that, when I was going over this morning, I kind of surprised that it was lower, because I really think that what CV Tech has to offer is something that is extremely important to, because they're learning trades, and when companies come in here, into the area, they're looking for people who are trained in certain areas of expertise, and they might not be looking for somebody who got an A in history or whatever, but somebody who can drive a nail straight or saw a board straight is very important to them. Are we sending fewer kids to CV Tech? Is that?
No, basically, if a student wants to go to CV Tech and they meet the criteria of the district, which it has to do with some academic criteria, also attendance criteria, then they're entitled to do that. And now with the change that has taken place in CV Tech, and we have honored that also, is that if a student goes for 2 years, they can obtain credit for some of their academic courses also, as long as there's an agreement that's arranged between the district and the NCV Tech. Because some of the courses that they take do carry academic credits, and we try to recognize that.
Okay. But I just think, I don't think we can overestimate the importance of what CV Tech has to offer to our students.
But there are different numbers each year, because based upon the number of students that come up in each of the grade levels. So.
Right. So that kind of fluctuates, and that's what that's what you're basing it on. Okay. School, library, and audio-visual went up about 10%. Computer-assisted tuition. Assisted instruction, I should say. Computer-assisted instruction went up went down 29,000. Why would computer-assisted instruction be going down? Obviously, we're in that computer age, and you can't.
Well, again, it all depends on. For when it comes to the instruction part, or computer-assisted, we have 2 individuals that work with us from NARIC. We have one individual who's here 2 days a week, and we have another individual who's here 4 days a week. So it's the services that we provide that you're looking at here. It's and even John Van Splinter is someone who has the ability to help teachers and to assist in the instruction of that too. So.
Okay, so it's not because we're
No.
de-emphasizing computers, I hope.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So you didn't think I was going to ask you about the ones going down, did you?
Well, no. I did focus on the big ones that went down, because, again, you have to look at, we had a great deal of reduction based, like I said, based upon enrollment. And when I was talking about that, is that when we formulated this budget, we were looking at around 80-some students that were coming into kindergarten. So we were looking at, decreasing one section of kindergarten. And we also were looking at the 5th graders coming into 6th grade, and there was a decreasing enrollment there also. So we were looking at a possibility of a reduction of a class level there. All of these numbers will be reassessed in August, naturally, when everyone's had a chance to take a look at, the end of the year. Some students will move in, some students will move out, some students will probably be asked to spend another year at a grade level. All of these factors will have to be taken into consideration.
Now, you just used a phrase that may have been polite, or it may be accurate. Asked to stay another year. When I was in school, you didn't get a choice in it. But I've got a brother in education over at the Saranac District, and he tells me it's kind of hard to fail a student these days. If parents want that child to advance, they're going to advance in many cases. Well,
I think that becomes a philosophical decision, but the way I feel about it is that if a child is going to spend additional time at a grade level, it should be with the understanding that this child will be more successful the following year, and also it should be an agreement that all parties are in agreement with, because the parents need to support the decision, and a lot of times the parents are the ones that would ask for that extended time, because it's very important that the child feels good about spending that additional year. Otherwise, it may not be beneficial. Okay. I'm just wondering what thoughts go into that.
Okay, interscholastic athletics are up a little bit. Are we adding anything? Money to modified coming back, or that?
Not at this time.
Not this time. So it's
no
status quo. Just in costs have gone up a little bit. Under undistributed, you'd mentioned the
employee benefits.
Yeah, the retirement. Was that strictly the teacher's retirement that took that big jump?
Yes, the teacher's retirement took a jump. The employee's retirement did not.
Okay, it went from 6%.
to 7.97%.
Why?
Because it has been going up each year, as you know. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the teachers' retirement system wants to build up a certain level within the retirement system. There was a time when it was almost zero because the market was good and they really had all the money that they needed, but we all suffered over a period of time when the market went down. So I feel that that retirement system needs to get back to the level that they were at, and the only way that they can do that is to generate money, and they generate money by assessing, each of the districts.
So, who decided on that increase? It's not something that's done here at
No,
Northeastern
no, no,
Clinton.
no, no.
Right.
We are informed. We are informed
By
of
the state?
by the state, what the retirement increase will be.
Okay, probably as good a time as any. I told you before we started I was going to mention this. I recently saw a principal retiring at age 55 in the Plattsburgh system, and someone who was 58. The idea of retiring at 55 seems strange to me, but this person will retire and make a lot more than the average person who was paying the tax bills. I think part of our problem, and it's not just, the school teachers always get mad at me when I mention the school, but it's not, it all seems that every state and federal job, retirement is at a relatively young age, and our life expectancy is growing. You won't find this in industry. We've got a major industry, hopefully it's going to stick around just down the road, and you're not going to find people there retiring at age 55. If the union got into a situation where that would be feasible, that plant wouldn't be there very long. They'd be outsourcing those jobs. So I think we've got to have people with the courage to step up here and say, we just can't afford this, that we can't afford to have our federal and state employees retiring at this young age.
Well, I think the one thing that you have to look at when you're looking at the New York State retirement systems, okay, there are various tiers. If you are in Tier 1, which means that you go all the way back to starting work in 1970, chances are you're going to be older than 55 if you're retiring now. And then if you're in Tier 2 or Tier 3 or Tier 4, there are different requirements that are put on. Even though you may retire at age 55, it doesn't mean that you're going to have the full retirement, because usually you have to put in 20 to 25, and now I believe Tier 4 you have to put in 30 years of service before you get your full retirement.
So they have made some
Oh,
changes.
yes, there are, definitely. And as a matter of fact, I believe that if you're into Tier 3 and Tier 4, you also have a contributory rate. So out of your salary, you have to contribute a certain amount. I think it might be around 3%.
So what you're saying is the teachers who are in the pipeline now are not getting the same package that the people who are retiring now are getting.
Right.
Because people retiring now are in there
Right.
under these other tiers.
Right. Like if you're under Tier 1, then yes, chances are. But if you are under Tier 1 and you're retiring right now, you will have put in almost over 30 years anyway. And I think most people who work, whether they work in industry, whether they work in education, anywhere, if they've put in 30-some years, they have a pretty good career.
Depending on when they started,
Right.
If you started at
Well, you
your
can't really
employment at 21 and you're 30 years later, you're only 51. But
Right, but at least in education, you probably don't start until maybe 22, 23,
Right.
because you would have to go through
then
college.
30 years
Yeah.
after that, it's still in your early
Yeah,
50s.
you're right.
So,
You're right.
And like I said, with the outsourcing of jobs, obviously the state and federal jobs, we mentioned off camera about police officers in Buffalo, and you're not going to outsource the police officers in Buffalo. You can't have somebody in India.
No, and that's why Erie County is in a lot of difficulty right now.
Yeah, so apparently there are some steps, and apparently it is being addressed, and something that I thought I'd make. We have a lot of federal employees and a lot of state employees. I thought I'd make everybody mad at me when I threw that out there, because those of us who are not at that trough end up paying for all this, and it's kind of expensive, and that's one of the reasons that I think we're losing jobs because of the taxes. I think that's one of the reasons companies are shipping the jobs away. Tax levy, which is of course the bottom line. The amount to be raised by taxes, is this the figure here that
$8,916,134.
which is a little less than $300,000 increase over last year.
Right. And the percentage on that for the tax levy is 3.28%.
So it's the increase, and hopefully there's a little bit of new assessment. I don't think there's been a lot of new construction going on. But yes, there has been a lot of new assessment, and as we're taping this, yesterday I got mine, my son got his 2 days ago. I assume you got your new.
I got mine, right.
And I was just at the town of Champlain offices, and Pat Ayre is sitting there, who's our town assessor, and she's hitting that button on the messages and going through them one at a time. And it's a very busy time of the year for her, because everybody who gets an increase in their assessment is usually not pleased with that. If you should get a decrease, you probably don't complain about it. But the figures you came up with and were given out at the past budget meeting, are based on last year's assessments. That's correct?
That's correct.
And based on last year's assessments, the general rate per thousand for Altona, Shazy, and Moores was $21.26. This year they would increase 70 cents to $21.96 per thousand. Champlain last year was not considered by the state to be of equal value comparatively speaking, so they throw in an equalization rate.
They were at 91%, right?
So that equalization rate resulted in the Champlain residents being taxed at 23.38, and this year the projection would be at 24.1. Now,
If they stay.
the same, but the assessed value in the town of Champlain in the Northeastern School District, because there is parts of the town of Champlain that are in the Shazy School District, and I think that's the only school district other than it has to be the only school district other than Northeastern that's in the town of Champlain. But the northeastern portion of it went from 255,000 to 255 million to 286 million. And surprisingly, Pat gave me this, I just looked at it, the assessed value for the Shazy district, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, I don't know what there was before, but theirs is at 27 million. But so our assessment in the town of Champlain has jumped by quite a bit. Altona, Sheila Miller called in the Jim Gagno's office at the county. Altona has gone up about only about 80,000, but that's only the portion that's in the Northeastern School District. So we're only talking $2.2 million of assessment to start with, and they went to 2.3 million. The Shazy people in our town of Shazy in the Northeastern School District went up about 300,000, a small percentage point, and the Moores went up just under 2 million. On 102, they went to 104. So they went up just a small percentage. And Northeastern went up the Champlain portion went up 12%. So I would think that Champlain would now be at
100%.
100%. And of course, there are appeals, what's the official word? What's when you appeal your...
Yeah, right, you can, it's an appeal. There's a date when they can go and they
Grievance
can...
day, I guess it's called.
right.
You go.
Mhm.
So, some people will probably have their assessments challenged, or will challenge their assessments and may end up winning this. And so that 286 million might go down a little bit, and that's also going to work proportionally in Moores and Shazy also in Altona. So you haven't had a chance to look at these new figures, and even if you did look at the new figures, they wouldn't be accurate because it all depends on what happens at grievance day.
Right.
But,
And it also has to go through the state, and we have to get notification from the state that the equalization rate has changed.
At what time in the year do you end up doing that? Does that come through?
It usually comes through like around the end of July or beginning of August, we will get notification.
And the tax bills go out, what, September?
September.
Yeah, so. And of course, this is an unusual year. We're sitting here in the middle of May, or early May actually, when we're taping this, and the state budget's already been passed. And
I know.
Years past, you've really been guessing because you didn't even have the figures from the state. Are the figures from the state at this point in stone, or are they still being dickered with?
They're pretty firm right now, and that's why we figured that we were going to get approximately, as I said, around maybe 140,000 more than what we had anticipated, and we're putting that towards the reduction of the fund balance, because we had that big project this year, which we want to pay for without going into debt. So we're going to be using quite a bit of our fund balance in order to pay for that, and this will help us make up that difference.
And well, the fund balance is down. Will be down to 287,000. Is that
Appro-
dangerously low?
No, that's the appropriated fund balance. Okay, it's not. In other words, that's the
That's
amount.
not the carryover fund balance.
No,
what
that's
we
the amount of money
appropriate.
that you put in to, as far as revenues go, to bring about, to pay for your, to fund your budget. The other fund balance will be down probably a little because we're going to be paying for the water project. But by the time we get done, we should have what we're allowed to carry, which is 2%. So we should have about 2% of fund balance plus our appropriated fund balance.
So 2% is, you're talking in the 400,000
Right,
range.
right.